Hello everyone, good. On behalf of the Lord Mayor, welcome to the Finance and Business 2030 event here in the city.
I think the SDG that is most important is industry, innovation and infrastructure. It's really about leveraging tech to create sustainable solutions.
The finance and business community can make its biggest contribution by actually recognising climate change as the biggest issue facing the planet at the moment.
This event is great because it's a great opportunity to bring people together to that affect us on a global level.
The financial community are the gate. They hold the keys to ending corruption, and that's the best thing they could do for the world.
The Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN are not a nice to have, they're an absolute must on the agenda, and I look forward to seeing what some of the brightest young minds come up with as we launch the task force for FinBiz 2030 Africa.
The talking is necessary at the beginning to stimulate, but the value of this session will be on the that these leaders will commit to taking forward to improve things in South Africa.
The single leader the world has ever seen came from this country.
Someone else has to do it is over, and I look at the young people who are immigrating out of the country. Why? We're the ones who can fix it. We're the ones who can do the change, and it's time around and realize that we are the change that we need right now.
It's a fantastic initiative, and it's already delivering, and that's the business of the day: delivery.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. On behalf of the Lord Mayor, welcome to the Finance and Business 2030 event here in the City of London.
The SDG that is most important to me is industry, innovation and infrastructure. It's really about leveraging technology to create sustainable solutions.
The finance and business community can make its biggest contribution through recognising that climate change is the biggest issue facing the planet at the moment.
This event is great because it's a great opportunity to bring people together to talk about the issues that affect us on a global level.
The community are the gatekeepers. They hold the keys to ending corruption, and that would be the best thing they could do for the world.
The Sustainable Development Goals by the UN are not a nice to have, they're an absolute must on the agenda, and are looking what some of South Africa's brightest young minds come up with as we launch the Task Force 2030 in South Africa.
Necessary at the beginning to stimulate the debate, but the value of this will be on the specific actions that these leaders will commit forward to improve things in South Africa.
The single greatest leader the world has ever seen.
The days of looking back and saying someone else has to do it is over. And I look at the young immigrating out of the country and I say, why? We're the ones who can fix it. We're the ones who change. And it's time we stop looking around and realize that we are the change that we need right now.
This is a fantastic initiative and it's already delivering. It's a business of the day, delivery.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. On behalf of the Lord Mayor, welcome Finance and Business 2030 event here in the City of London.
I think the SDG that's most important to me is industry innovation and infrastructure. It's really about leveraging technology to create sustainable solutions.
The business community can make its biggest contribution by actually recognising that change is the biggest issue facing the planet at the moment.
This event is great because it's a great opportunity to bring people together to talk about the effects of us on a global level.
The financial community are the gatekeepers. They hold the keys to ending corruption. It would be the best thing they could do for the world.
The Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN are not a nice to have, they're an absolute must on the agenda, and I look forward to what some of South Africa's brightest young minds come up with as we launch the COP26 2030 in South Africa.
The talking is here at the beginning to stimulate the debate, but the value of this session will be on the specific actions that these leaders will commit to taking foolproof things in South Africa.
The single greatest leader the world has ever seen came from country.
Days of looking back and saying someone else has to do it over, and I look at the young people who are immigrating out of the country, and I say, why? We're the fix it. We're the ones who can do the change, and it's time we stop looking around and realize that we are the change that we need right now.
This is a fantastic initiative, and it's already, and that's the business of the day, delivery.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. On behalf of the Lord Mayor, welcome to the Finances 2030 event here in the City of London.
The SDG that's most important to me is industry innovation, and it's really about leveraging technology to create sustainable solutions.
The finance and business community can make its biggest contribution by actually recognising that climate change is the biggest issue facing the planet at the moment.
This event is great because it's a great opportunity together to talk about the issues that affect us on a global level.
The financial gatekeepers, they hold the keys to ending corruption. Be the best thing they could do for the world.
The Sustainable Development by the UN are not a nice to have, they're an absolute must on the agenda, and I look at what some of South Africa's brightest young minds come up with as we launch the task force for Finbit in South Africa.
The talking is necessary at the beginning, but the value of this session will be on that these leaders will commit to taking forward to improve things in South Africa.
The single greatest leader the world came from this country.
days of looking back and saying someone else is over, and I look at the young people who are immigrating out of the country, and I say, we're the ones who can fix it, we're the ones who can do the change, and it's time we stop looking around. We are the change that we need right now.
This is an initiative and it's already delivering. And that's the business of the day, delivery.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. The Lord Mayor, welcome to the Finance and Business 2030 event here in the City of London.
I think the SDG that's most to me is industry innovation and infrastructure. It's really about leveraging technology to create sustainable solutions.
The finance and business community can make its biggest contribution by actually recognising that climate change is the biggest issue facing them at the moment.
This event is great because it's a great opportunity to bring people together to talk about the issues that affect us on a global level.
The financial community are the gatekeepers. They hold the key to ending corruption. And that would be the best thing for the world.
The Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN are not a nice to have, absolute must on the agenda. And I look forward to seeing what some of South Africa's brightest youngs come up with as we launch the task force for FinBiz 2030.
The talking is necessary at the beginning to stimulate the debate, but the value of this session will be on the actions that these leaders will commit to taking forward to improve South Africa.
The greatest leader the world has ever seen came from this country.
The day back and saying someone else has to do it is over, and I look at the young people who are immigrating, and I say, why? We're the ones who can fix it, we're the ones who can do it, and it's time we stop looking around and realize that we are the change that we need right now.
This is a fantastic initiative and it's already delivering. That's the business of the day, delivery.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Finance and Business 2030 event of 2021, part of the Resilience series and hosted today by the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. I'm Mabel and I'll be one of your hosts today alongside the lovely Jolly, who is my co-chair of the FinBiz 2030 UK Task and a fellow One Young World Ambassador. I'm also the founder of Build School and an advisor at Climate Ventures.
Thank you, great to be back with you on this series after we had our first webinar gig together, so it's amazing to see how far we've covered. On top of being a FinBiz co-chair with Emma, I'm CEO of TotemFi, CFO of Happy Space, and then when I'm not on sabbatical, a corporate tax associate at Grant Thornton. So it's amazing to see how many of you have joined us today. We've got over 1,000 attendees from across 105 countries, which is absolutely phenomenal. It will lead to a really interesting conversation. For those of you who don't know, Finance and Business 2030 or FinBiz 2030 is an initiative led by One Young World and Chartered Accountants worldwide. Our mission is to unite and mobilize leaders across these two sectors to tackle the UN's development goals. And they do this through the FinBiz 2030 task forces, which are operational around the world.
So there are now FinBiz task forces up and running in the UK, Africa, Ireland, and soon in the USA and Nigeria, with over 70 talented driving forward impactful initiatives. The FinBiz 2030 team created this building series out of a need to address the collective and shared challenges that we all experience in all corners of the world. And today we're going to focus on global leadership and local action needed to tackle this climate change issue.
Yeah, exactly. So the World Climate Conversation up towards the critical COP26 Climate meeting taking place November 2020 in the UK. So whilst the pandemic has paused many key climate initiatives, it has not dampened the ambition or lessened the severity of the climate the world faces. The challenges presented by the climate crisis are often acutely, but the leadership required is clearly global that is needed to tackle them. Today, we wish to understand how young leaders in business and finance can really help connect these two.
So we're going to be hearing from 6 amazing speakers who will each bring their expertise and give you a holistic overview of the issue and hopefully share some actionable insights. Scroll down now to see the full list and read all of their bios in detail. But for this first hour, we're going to hear from our guests. Then we're going to head to an extended session for 25 with Q&A, which is going to be our little after party. And for those wanting to hear more from our rec and dive deeper into the issues, you can have questions answered then. But first, we want to ask you 3 questions so we can understand more about who's on the call today. So let's start off with our first poll. Question 1, how confident are you that the world can deliver a climate safe future? So the options should be popping up on your screen now. So option 1, I'm filled with optimism at the current rate of change and hopeful for the future. Option 2, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride and could go either way. Or option 3, there's not enough action to get us there and it's a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Emma. And so we're really starting off quickly. So our second question is, how much of a role do you think finance and the community will play in driving the necessary action on climate? Option 1 is they're going to be critical partners for success. Option 2 is they play a role and others must take the lead. Or option 3, finance and business respond to the world around them and they do not lead it.
Yeah, really want to see the answers for that one. Our final question, do you feel that there's more that you could do to drive action organisation? So option 1, my organisation is paving the way and I feel part of this. Option 2, I'm doing a bit, but I could probably do a bit more. Or option 3, I've not even started yet doing anything currently. Be honest.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Thanks, Em. So while we're waiting for you guys to complete the polls and give you a chance to sort of have a think about those and submit your answers, we're just going to run through a couple of housekeeping things. I'm sure you're all professionals after the Zoom calls, but for those of you having issues with bandwidth, you can lower the resolution on your stream. See us better. This is done by the settings wheel at the bottom right of your video screen. Make sure you continue to use the chat function to drop in any comments or questions for specific speakers that you might have, because we'd absolutely love to hear from you, and I'm sure they would too. So we'll circle back to those later in the Q&A. We also ask that you turn off your phone to silent and close all the other tabs on your browser so you can really focus and get the most from the session today. We encourage you to share your favorite quote from this evening's session on social media by using the hashtag FinBiz2030 and tagging us in your posts so we can continue that conversation. The social handles should hopefully be showing up for you now, but they're sort of One Young World, Chartered Accountants Worldwide, and ICAEW.
Okay, so now back to our polling questions. Hopefully we've got some thoughts coming in so we can gauge the temperature amongst you all today. Interesting.
What are your feelings for them, Emma? We were just waiting to hear back, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, me personally, I do feel confident and optimistic that we can tackle this. I feel like everyone is very much aware, and on an individual and on an organisational and national level, I think that the change is starting to be taken seriously. So I'm seeing now that actually everyone, it's a very high, 64% think it's going to be a bumpy ride and it could go either way. So that's sort of middle of the road. 20% think there's not enough action to get us there. It's a little bit too little, too late. And only 15% of you are filled with confidence that we can get there. So I think Jan and I have got a bit of a task on our hands to try and up that percentage by the end of our.
Yeah, well, we'll do our absolute best. That's what I can assure you. And certainly some of our speakers will hopefully turn that figure on its head.
So next one coming in, how much of a role do you think finance and business community has to play? Wow, overwhelming. 64% of you think that the finance and business sector is a critical partner for success, and I would happen to agree with that. 32% of you think finance and business does play a role, but governments must take the lead. And only 3% of you think that finance and business respond to the world but do not lead it. So actually, that's very interesting as well. And for the final poll, do you feel there's more that you can do to have an impact in your organisation? Actually, really interesting. So most of you today, 62%, think you're doing a bit, but there's more that you can do. 24% of you think that your organisation is paving and you feel very happy to be a part of that. And only 15% of you think that you haven't started yet or you're not doing anything currently. So I guess the challenge for us is to give you enough practical insights and tips so that you can get this up in your own organisation.
Yeah, for sure. So stick with us for the next. There's going to be lots of amazing content. Get your seatbelt on. Emma, let's kick it off.
So it wouldn't be a FinBiz webinar without a welcome from two of our biggest champions, Caitlin and Michael Izzer. Michael, as the CEO of the Institute in Chartered Accountants England and Wales, and of course the chairman of Chartered Accountants Worldwide, we'd love to hear your perspective on.
Emma, Jolly, thank you very much. I wanted to start with a few thank yous, because like today's don't just happen out of the ether. There's an awful lot of people doing hard work behind the scenes. So first of all, I would just like to recognise the work that you, Emma and Jolly, have done. First of all, in hosting today's webinar, but in everything that you have done to date in terms of co-chairing the UK FinBiz 2030 Task Force. You've been great young leaders, and can I just say, we're expecting a lot more from you. You're going to hear from 3 speakers shortly. It is the speakers in this series who do make the difference, both for sharing their inspirational stories and giving us some practical experience that Emma just referenced in terms of tackling climate change. And, you know, no one has a monopoly on good ideas in this area. We can all learn from each other and we can all share. So I'm really looking forward to what our young leaders have to say. I have to thank Kate Robertson. Kate is going to say a few words in a minute. but Kate is an inspirational leader, and One Young World and Chartered Accountants Worldwide, in partnership, have built the entire FinBiz 2030 Building Resilience series. And I think we have collectively shown great commitment to mobilising the finance and business community to help tackle the UN SDGs. So as you heard from Jolly in his introductory remarks, today's event is actually the second anniversary of the launch of FinBiz 2030, which took place in London in 2019. And since then, this community, I think, has grown like Topsy internationally. The events that we've held around the world, and I was on one in New York just last month, have highlighted the serious challenges that we are facing as a world. But they've also emphasised the personal challenges that we all face. And they've brought out the role that each of us has to play in tackling them. So despite the enormity of the challenge and the scepticism that some of you displayed in that opening poll, there are endless opportunities right now for finance and business to bring in the Sustainable Development Goals as part of recovery plans from the pandemic and to build resilient and sustainable economies that will serve us well decades ahead. I mean, make no mistake about it. Those of you in the finance and business sectors are going to have to do nothing short of re-engineering and transforming your business models. Throughout the series, we've heard that as leaders, determination, purpose, and resilience are absolutely key to address these challenges. Now, all of you on this webinar today as young leaders have got a role to play in influencing and affecting change. The first steps, though, towards change don't necessarily have to be big, but they can start a journey which ultimately ends up being significant and transformative for your organisation, for those that you work with, and for those that you advise. And as finance professionals, you can use your skills to help transform businesses, help your communities, and shape the future. I think another key learning point that's come out of the series so far is we've all learned the importance of international collaboration. And global platforms such as FinBiz 2030, along with looks like One Young World and Chartered Accountants Worldwide, are absolutely vital to facilitate collaboration and to help drive action. So let me say in conclusion, I hope that you enjoy our event today, that we're going to all find it inspirational, and most importantly, when you've heard from them, that you go away and you're encouraged to take action and involve with your FinBiz global community. This is just the start. There are going to be many more of these in future, and you can make a difference to your organisation, your community, and yourselves. Thank you. Let me hand over to Kate.
Michael, thank you. And let it be said, it is you and the Ruth Hidalgo at Institute of Chartered Accountants Worldwide in Wales. You guys have done the heavy lifting for this. And thank you too to Emma and John, all of the One Young World ambassadors who are speaking today and who are on the call. I'd love to spend ages thanking all of you and really elaborate on this, but I will thank him seriously and move on to say the following. Nothing can build resilience in person, and particularly someone working in one of the professions, someone who's fortunate job. Nothing builds resilience like having clarity of purpose. Nothing. You know what it is that you're trying to do, even when things are rough. Keep going, you will be resilient. It's when we're wandering around purposeless that the other things creep in. And here is the thing. This network of people, and Michael, this network of chartered accountants in the world is actually the structure that will guarantee that governments and businesses is what we need to achieve to meet at least the goals of Paris Climate Agreement. And the goals of what's been committed in the Paris Climate Agreement is not sufficient. Yeah. It gets the world to about 2.8 if we're lucky, 3 degrees. We need to be at 1.5. There's no argument about that. But let me tell you why this thing is stuck. I've been working on Goal 13, climate change, from my early days, 2008-9, with my good friend, the late Mr. Anand. An argument of business and everybody, driven by bad actors, but everybody's argument was, yeah, well, when we talk to the shareholders and the investors, they're not so interested in this. It'll affect our share price. Can't do this, can't do that. That is where we were 2008-9, and this was the constant argument. Now, your survey today says that those days are gone. But what I would urge this network to do is to realize, and this is a strange thing to say to chartered accountants, I know, you are the infrastructure, the change that has to be made. And I know you don't see yourselves as such. I've seen absolute clarity over the last 12 years. It's absolutely clear to me that if your community is not the infrastructure and is not driving this, and I mean at scale, I don't mean the small initiatives that we take as individuals, the smaller things. I'm talking here to not so much to the One Year World ambassadors who's speaking today, to the chartered accountants worldwide, the young chartered accountants. It's true to say, and I know it's becoming a cliche, but you must hold to this. Paul Polman says, we only treasure what we can measure. And your profession has come to the fight to less climate change and to mitigate its impact. Since your profession has come there, guess what? All of a sudden, everybody started their impact. We're measuring emissions, we're measuring reduction, we're measuring carbon capture and everything else. And this is where you guys come in. So it's not a question of saying to you, leave your day job as an accountant at the office and go off and help litter sorting or whatever extra volunteering work you do. It's a question of saying, I, chartered accountant, me, in this job, without me, it doesn't happen. Everything Christiana Figueres talks about, that big oil and gas will have stranded assets. It's affecting their share prices at the moment. God bless them. But there you go. Now it's a payola. Now things start to change. But everything has to change, and every single thing, every client you have, every account you work on, every account you consult for or audit, every single one of them. Goal 13 of the SDGs, Goal 13 is it. And this infrastructure of you chartered accountants, if this thing starts to work, the train that needs to roll to end this terrible scourge, it will roll. But without you guys counting, it's not going to happen. And the years are short now. The years are short. I would join Emma in being optimistic, in holding on to confidence. The road is going to be incredibly bumpy. There is no question about it. But as we've just lived through what we've just lived through the last year, and some of us are fortunate to be where we're protected, and our hearts have to go out to our brothers and sisters in our family in India. As we, please God, start to deal with this pandemic, we have to understand this is the dress rehearsal for the effects of climate change. So I urge you, this powerful network of accountants, you matter, and everything you do every day has to matter. You do the counting. You are the ones who make everything count towards this thing. So I urge this network. It is one of the most powerful networks in the world. And from every vantage point, all I can say to you is the world needs you, and it needs you as it never has before. So back to you, Jolly-Anna.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate and Michael. We're really looking forward to hearing more from you later on. But the thing I've away from both of you is we can all do our bit. We can all take action, clarity of purpose, and that little gem, treasure what you could measure. I'm take that one away with me. So thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely sure, Roz, if you could bottle what Michael and Kate have got on that inspiration, not only would you be a millionaire, if you could sell it, we'd also live in utopia. So absolutely phenomenal from both of them. So thank you so much for your generous support, as always, for our work, and Michael in particular for your climate action. We're obviously very proud here at the ICAEW that we're now carbon neutral. That's an absolutely fantastic achievement. So now it's time to hear from the stars of the show. We have three exceptional climate leaders who will tell us how they are using their finance and business action to deliver that climate action we've been speaking about. Their speeches will be followed by a panel discussion and a subsequent Q&A. So make sure you drop in the questions in your chat, as we mentioned earlier, so we can circle back to those. So without further ado, we are first to a fellow One Young World ambassador based in the Seychelles, Angelique Popon. She is the Chief Executive of the Seychelles Conservation and Climate Adaptation Trust, supports community-led projects and marine conservation and climate change. She is a legal specialist, a trained climate change negotiator, and a real authority on all things ocean related. So, Angelique, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jolly. Greetings, everyone. Greetings from the Seychelles. And it's good to hear from you in terms of your views of how things are going. We do need to aim for that 1.5, but I do hope my intervention will give you a little bit more confidence that things are going in the right direction, but also that you can definitely be part of that transformation of the world. So I'm from a small island developing state in the middle of the Indian Ocean. 115 islands scattered across 1.35 million kilometers square of ocean. So in reality, we are 99% ocean and 1% land. We're only 90,000 people on this precious, and we're hard hit by the effects of climate change. And these vary. Imagine we're threatened by sea level rise, extremely common with more and more frequent storm surges. The roads, the houses, the tourism establishment, all our infrastructure are actually located next to the shore. And it's quite the sight, or it's becoming even a more frequent sight to wake up every day and finding sand is now covering the roads, because the storm surges, the ocean is bringing so much onto the land. And we anticipate there will be more erosion, salination, cultural land, threatening food security. And the area that I'm working closely with is the ocean. And the ocean is heavily threatened by the effects of climate change. We have ocean warming, ocean acidification, all dissolving the coral reefs that we so much need. And the coral reefs not only protect our shorelines from that very erosion that we've been talking about, but also provides a habitat for a lot of the ecosystems that provides us with a source of food, livelihoods. People are going out fishing. But in addition to that, as an economic pillar, so many people come to the Seychelles to visit our coral reefs and the biodiversity that lives there. But in addition to the economy, and I like speaking to a finance crowd here, in relation to the economy, we have, because of the temperature of the waters are actually moving, we're seeing that fish that we typically depend on for as a driver of our economy is actually migrating to cooler latitudes. So what that means is the vessels will follow the fish, of course. And the port services that we offer in the Seychelles will no longer be used, significantly hitting our core economy. And this has happened in the past when we've had El Nino effects, and we're seeing, because of climate change, El Nino effects are becoming more frequent. So these are all impacts that small islands like the Seychelles have to deal with. But I want to share a little bit about my story before I get to where I am now, which is working for a funds manager. So the Seychelles Conservation and Climate Adaptation Trust manages money. So we manage funds. I'm a lawyer by profession. And like exactly what Kate said, you know, what do you do as a hobby on the side? You don't need to become sort of climate change expert. It's where it starts. So I was a corporate lawyer, very much dealing with commercial cases, corporate clients. But on the side, I was running a youth-led full development NGO. And these were my weekends, cleaning this, campaigning for bans of plastic bags. Those were my day-to-day, well, my weekends. But during the day, I was doing something completely different. And then I decided to specialize, essentially to marry my profession and my passion, and specialize in environmental law. And that's where I moved into the finance world as well. So at the Seychelles Conservation and Climate Adaptation Trust, we call it SECAT, we manage proceeds of blended finance. Blended finance, and some of you may know, is when you get public and private funding coming together, because this is important to have that partnership if we're really going to address the issue. Governments will not be able to do this alone. Private sector will not be able to do this alone. We're going to need to bring that PPP, and I add an additional piece, so public, private, and people partnership in order to achieve this. So these proceeds are being managed by us, and we channel them to projects that fund climate action, ocean conservation, and blue economy. And this varies from rehabilitation of mangroves, education and awareness about climate change, building resilient livelihoods by putting a value to the ecosystem services that a lot of nature is providing to us. At the moment, we're currently looking at the valuation of seagrass meadows. Seagrass absorbs carbon from the air, and that is a global ecosystem service that the seagrass meadows of Seychelles is providing to the world. So those are all ways in which we can channel the funds to actually be used to build resilience and to see these transformative climate action take place. So just to bring it together, there's a need to bridge science, policy, and finance. Most oftentimes we talk about ambition and we talk about it in terms of action, and that's really important, but it cannot come without finance. You really reach a difficult place if you don't have the finance there. And as financiers or as accountants or people supporting financiers, you can really be a trendsetter because you've got the power of finance. You can set the pace. You do not have to be a follower. You can set the pace. But of course, remember, there's a lot to learn from the community. You've got to work with people. You've got to work with those who have the expertise and understanding. So you really bridge the gap. This is not about doing it all alone, right? We need to come together and bridge those gaps. And I just want to end here. I know I'm a bit over time, but just to say that I'm a lawyer who does management of funds for ocean conservation, and I sure know I don't know what I would do without my accountant. So just to let you know, you're all very valuable, and it's making sure that we are using our skills towards the much needed transformations that we need to see for our world. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Angelique, for your sort of world-class connecting us with climate change on a local level, because I think sometimes it's easy for us, or me personally in the UK, to feel removed from some of its effects. So kind of understanding that accountability, that sombering fee is very important, to feel that and accept it, but don't just accept it, take that second step to actually making something action to do something different. So you've already set us off on a strong thing for the webinar. Back over to you, Em, for the second speaker. Em, I think you could be on mute there. I think it's a 2021 special.
Oh, it isn't a webcam. I'm being on mute.
We took the pressure off the speakers. We took the pressure off the speakers there. So
I'll try that again. Next up, I'm thrilled to be welcoming Abby Wadana, who at a very impressive young age is the Technical Director at the Climate Disclosures Standard Board. CDSB is a big 5 global sustainability standards setter that works to provide material information for investors and financial markets through the integration of climate change related information into mainstream financial reporting. Ravi has been an amazing source of insight for the FINBIS UK task force and certainly will be for all of you today. So over to you, Ravi.
Thanks so much, Emma. Hello. So there's a lot of noise when it comes to accountants having accountants saving the world. And I guess, like, how can I support you in addressing some of those expectations? So like yourselves, I'm a chartered accountant. I've been a financial controller and part of corporate change management solutions focused on combining climate and wider environmental matters into departments. I'm now the technical director with the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, which is supporting the IFRS on its new strategic direction to develop sustainability standards. Pleased to know that accountants like you and I have all the skills to support climate action within the companies we operate in, doing what we do best, challenging and testing positions and assumptions, and ensuring comparable and consistent opinions within the books we prepare and the financial disclosures which we build, and painting a picture that creates global trust. Consistency and comparability in annual reports is more important than ever, with significant existing inconsistencies between the front half net zero commitments, the back half where financials are. Despite climate net zero commitments in the front half of annual reports, the financial opportunities posed by climate are really not reflected in the financial statements themselves. It is the responsibility of accountants like you and I to make sure that the back half very much aligns to the front half. And because of those inconsistencies, corporate greenwashing is rife, and this impacts climate action. Our main job as accountants is to piece together the front half climate sustainability narrative into the back half of accounts where financials are. This isn't for investors to interpret the risk climate has on it. Our skill sets in this area will facilitate peer comparability in statements, ensuring companies are reporting on profitability, solvency alongside climate, and that assumptions used in financial statements are consistent with sustainability, helping link investors to actual risk and performance of companies from climate and help with the allocation of sustainable financing. If we do this properly, then we will not have quoted companies doing assets well above what they can do in a sustainable world, and we'll achieve that if accounting numbers are correct and the front end reporting is done right. If we don't get this right, it poses a threat to environmental issues we're attempting to resolve, with corporate greenwashing continuing and hard decisions on climate and other environmental matters such as biodiversity being avoided. Your action in connecting the dots will provide wider transformation. The good thing is that an accountant does not need to be an expert in climate, and that's been reiterated by others. But you do need to ask the correct questions and understand how climate change could impact the numbers we manage in our books on a day-to-day business and as auditors audit. Therefore, my suggestion to you is take free courses such as those on the TCFD Knowledge Hub and put it into action, building upon IFRS Guide Accounting for Climate via financial reporting or applying the ICAEW's climate guidance to auditors. It's not revolutionary, it's pretty vanilla, and you can start today. If you work for a large company, get your sustainability department to work for you by asking questions and finding ways to collaborate, or get the support of a good consultant who will challenge you and your corporate and the company's thinking. And don't forget to bring others on the journey, and make sure that you connect in with your FC, financial controllers, financial directors, CFOs and CEOs to advocate the implementation of climate-related disclosures as set out by TCFD and strongly encouraged by global investors. I'm hoping that I've inspired you to apply the thinking in finance and audit departments you operate in, challenge the sustainability commitments made by companies, but asking questions of preparers and connecting the dots where climate change can impact the recoverable amounts of assets held on the books. Work with auditors on such matters. Our unique skill set is needed more than ever. So from the humblest of bookkeepers to the lofty heights of a CFO or an auditor reviewing year-end financials, we all have a part to play in ensuring that the financial books hold a true and fair picture when it comes to the impact of climate on asset values, and appropriate provisions are booked into the accounts where possible. Thanks ever so much.
Oh, thanks, Ravi. What a great idea. And I've written down 3 things for everyone to be able to do as a result of your great suggestions. So that's take courses. There's some great free ones that you can find online linked to the CAEW. Work and collaborate with your sustainability department as much as possible, and start applying the thinking, connect the dots, work with the auditors, and get these things moving forward. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more from you later in the panel and our Q&A.
Yeah, thank you. And last but certainly not least, we're going to hear from Jessica, who is at the heart of the government's effort to ensure transparency and accountability in all of its spending. Very easy job overall. Jessica works at the National Audit Office as an auditor, where her focus is to support innovation and accountability within the public sector and the wider accountancy profession. So Jessica, over to you.
Thanks, Jolly. Hi, everyone. So as he said, I'm here to talk about the role of the public sector, as well as hold the flag and represent all the valuable work that auditors can do in tackling change. For those that aren't familiar, the UK National Audit Office is a supreme audit institution that makes a valuable public sphere, and it's something that our keynote speaker, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, will know very well, having sat on the Public Accounts Committee and held the government to account many times. So as of 2020, we're now at 1 degrees of global warming, and I think all nations have now recognised the importance of limiting it to 1.5 degrees. And the UN has now published a report finding that global greenhouse gas emissions in 2030 will only be 0.5% below 2000 levels if we continue at our current pace, way off what's needed to hold global warming below 1.5 degrees. So I'm agreeing with everyone, it looks like it's going to be a bumpy ride. But government's reorganisation of its approach to tackle change has reflected the high political priority needed to achieve net zero and the cross-governmental nature of this challenge. We need to recognise that CO2 emissions are something that we have control and decision over, both as organisations and as individuals, and therefore it is possible at the moment to meet the 1.5 degree cap. But the longer that emissions are increasing, the bigger the cut will be required to meet that limit. And despite the scale and how scary this challenge might be, it is something that we can overcome. And in tandem with this, UK emissions have been decreasing steadily over recent years, and this is especially within the power sector. But achieving net zero by 2050 is going to require comprehensive changes across both local and global society at a pace which has little room for delay. But the pandemic has shown how societal changes can happen rapidly when humanity recognises a real and present danger. And the NAO is improving accountability and transparency through work such as our recent report on government's ability to achieve net zero. Published in December 2020, it contains more than 20 recommendations for the UK government to help drive our nation's ability to deliver on its environmentals. This analysis is valuable for everyone to learn from, both in the public and the private. Within our report, we found that the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, alongside other departments involved, was yet to put in place all the essential components for effective cross-government working, such as integrated planning, progress monitoring, and the processes to dependencies to ensure that all of government steps up to this challenge. Matters that are likely to be familiar with large organisations and SMEs alike. The scale of the UK government's environmental ambitions, particularly on net zero, means in order to reach the success, government needs to consider every tool it has at its disposal. And Her Majesty's Treasury's review of how the transition to net zero will be funded is an important first step in this process. But beyond these internal structures, we found that the government also needs to spearhead a concerted national effort to achieve the ambitious outcome of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. To drive this necessary momentum, we all need to engage actively and constructively with all those who play a part, the public sector, industry, and individuals. COP26 and the build-up and momentum around this is going to be one of the many opportunities. The NAO has a wide variety of environmental and sustainability outputs, both published and ongoing, which are publicly available for everyone to take advantage of, be it lessons learned or understanding of risks. Finally, I want to talk about my own personal development perspective. I want to mention the importance of being proactive, asking questions around climate and audit risk, meeting and develop relationships across your organisations with different people and departments. This challenge will require diverse thinking and views, and the UN Sustainability Agenda recognises the intersectionality of issues. By focusing on just one of these issues, be it racism, sexism, or inequality, you're putting us on a path to a more sustainable future. We often talk of the risks and fears around climate change. However, we need to recognise and embrace the opportunities we face. By harnessing our own sense of ambition and commitment, we all have the opportunity to conquer this unprecedented challenge and create a more resilient future for us all. And back to you, Jolly.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Yeah, I think the two main things that I'm really pulling out of what you're discussing there is when addressing the severity of the situation, I think it's also really important to inspire people and give them that optimism, that hope that we can get there, but never play down that first bit of how severe the situation that is we are facing. But don't put them, especially young leaders, do not put them off that challenge. Do let them know that there's a chance that we can do that, and we'll do that if we all pull together very quickly. And the second one is seeing those things, the recommendations that are posed to government. Don't wait for them to be through. Be proactive. Say to your business leaders, look, these are the recommendations. Let's get them in now. Let's start moving ahead of time rather than being reactive to these things. So I think that's some really important points that you brought up there, and definitely something that people can take down a note and take back to their businesses or into their personal lives. So amazing stuff. Thanks, Jessica. I'm sure also the audience is eager to hear more. So let's move straight on to our panel discussion, which Emma is going to be taking the lead on. That sneaky mute button.
Just to echo Jessica's words, I think diverse thinking and views is what is needed here. So speaking of which, we've sprinted through the keynotes and now we're going to head into our panel session. We've had loads of questions submitted, so we're going to try and get a few of them done now, and there will be more in our after party later on. So to kick off, Ravi, I'm going to come to you first. In 2 minutes, do you think the ambitions on climate action are going to be at odds with jobs of people working in mainstream finance and business?
Hey, thanks. Good question. I don't think they will be, Emma. I can most certainly see accountants and auditors' roles including climate, and more specifically climate-related financial disclosures by 2030 or even sooner. Why do I say that? Well, there's already guidance out by the International Accounting Standards Board, and also the ICAEW have provided guidance around climate in financial reporting and audit guidance. So from my perspective, not at all. I think it's definitely going to be on an accountants or auditors, right, to do this thoroughly. And also we have to take into consideration the IFRS Sustainability Standards Board, you know, if that genuinely kicks off and meets market expectations, and it expands beyond climate to address other thematic issues such as biodiversity, water, or wider social issues, and how those wider sustainability risks like ultimately transcend the corporate boundary and impact the financial numbers which accountants, you know, manage on a day-to-day basis and auditors audit. It's going to be part of their job very soon. So that's just the general like traction of what's happening within the financial reporting space and audit space. So it's really exciting, and there's lots of developments happening from a regulatory perspective as well. Lots of movement across the pond over in the US. I'm based over in the UK, sorry. So across the pond over in the US, and then also over in New Zealand as well. TCFD is becoming mandatory. So it's really exciting times.
Yeah, really interesting actually. So okay, Jessica, I'm gonna ask you the same question. Do you think you know, climate action is going to be at odds with professionals working in mainstream finance and business, or do you think there is a need to be achieved there?
I think there's definitely harmony to be achieved, because there are so many opportunities in finance and business to really take advantage of this situation. And if anything, we're going to be alongside them to help them on this journey. And if obviously this will require everyone to fully embrace the scenario that we're in, but if we do and we take advantage of that and recognize the risks and challenges, there's real opportunity for positive progress in the right direction. And I think the values that accountants hold, such as professional behavior and integrity, is a valuable toolkit in climate change and offering skepticism as we work towards the future.
Really interesting. I think you're so right. There is no option other than to fully embrace the situation. Okay, so Angelique, the next question, I'm going to come to you first. I think we have all identified that there are many challenges which probably feel at times. What makes you feel hopeful that we can achieve a climate safe future?
That's a great question. What makes me feel hopeful? What makes me feel hopeful is that when I was much younger advocate, it was really interesting how discussions about renewable energy, for example, seemed so far removed. It was never going to be cheaper. That was the discussion at the table when I was much younger. It was never going to be cheaper. And today we see that renewable energy is the cheaper option. Obviously can be made even more cheaper if we stop subsidizing fossil fuel industries. And that for me shows that when people have a challenge, have a cause, and we're actually committed. This is not just about, you know, saying we'll do something. We're actually committed to deliver. We do deliver, and the need for innovation, the need for coming together and partnerships. I think that's really what gives me a lot of hope, because there was a time, and it's not been I'm not that old, so it's not been a long time since we saw this transition from renewable energies too expensive to everybody's going for renewables, and there's a more democratization even of access to energy. Thanks.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you said there. So two things: innovation partnerships are giving you hope. So Ravi, I'm going to come to you first. Can you give another couple of examples of what's giving you hope?
Yeah, of course. What's given me hope? I guess it's a general market traction, right? So there's been a lot of traction behind the Task Force climate-related financial disclosures. This is really exciting for accountants. And then IFRS have, you know, recently weighed in with regards to the possible creation of a sustainability standards board. Once again, something which is really complementary to a chartered accountant, because ultimately we serve the purpose of providing consistent and comparable information. And there's now a market drive to actually have that climate information within within the accounts. So that for me is a really exciting space to be in, and I'm really happy to be an organisation which is really right at the cutting edge of all of this as well, and producing content which should hopefully support accountants as well on this journey.
Yeah, brilliant, and it's definitely proving helpful. The content that is being produced and the market traction is undeniable. So, Jessica, finally coming to you, is there any other anything else giving you hope?
I think it's just these conversations generally. The fact that in terms of accounting, we can already apply existing IFRS to make sure that we're looking at climate risks, and I think that gives me hope that things can happen straight away, and people are recognizing that we don't have to wait for someone to take the first step or for a new standard to come ahead. So yeah, I think there's a lot of hope on the horizon.
Brilliant. So that brings us to this panel discussion. As always, I wish I had more time. Thank you for your brilliant insights. And we're going to have an extended Q&A in the after party. I now have the great honour of introducing the Right Honourable Anne-Marie, the MP for Berwick-upon-Tweed, Minister of State for Business, Energy and Growth, and the UK's international champion on adaptation and resilience for the COP26 presidency. In a twist of fate, we actually met at the Foreign Office in the previous months prior to COVID, and I am absolutely thrilled that she is participating today.
Thank you for inviting me to address what I am sure will be a fascinating event today. I must apologise that due to pressing government, I cannot join you for your session. As a proud chartered accountant myself, great to speak to the future of the profession in order to deliver these three key messages. The pace of commitment and action from all parts of the world and society is continuing to build ahead of COP26. On Earth Day last Thursday, President Biden announced that US emissions will fall by at least 50% by 2030. Business will play a key role in making COP26 a success. Last week we saw 43 banks with assets of $28 trillion commit to the gold standard in climate action. As young professionals, you shape this greener future through your work and the wider economy you will be working in. And you're starting by leading this change today. Let me introduce myself more fully. I am the Minister at the UK Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And last November, the also appointed me as the UK's international champion on adaptation and resilience for the COP26. My dual roles allow me a holistic view of differences of climate action. As adaptation and resilience champion, my work is most climate vulnerable communities across the world. I engage with donor countries and the private sector to help these communities to adapt and to become more resilient to growing impacts of climate change, such as extreme weather events. Progress on adaptation is a priority for the UK as the host of COP26 this year. I've had the privilege of meeting civil society activists, advocate leaders who are truly inspiring in the climate change that they are powering. I recently spoke to a distinguished group of international women leaders, including from civil society and grassroots organisations, who emphasised the vital role of women, young people and Indigenous communities in driving action on the ground. We must highlight leadership at a local level, work together to empower communities to respond to and prepare for the impacts of climate change. In my other role as Energy Minister for the UK, I support business transition to net zero in line with the UK's legal binding 2050 goal to seize opportunities and to overcome barriers. The major priority as we draw ever closer to COP26. We are seeing ministers and governments stepping up. Here in the UK, we've set 2030 as the end date for the petrol and diesel cars. But we need to see more. I believe our profession can play a key role in this. Charterers must be the difference makers. Climate change poses companies to financial institutions and individuals alike. With physical and transition risks can have material impacts on the value of companies and their assets. Physical risks are those arising from the climatic of higher average temperatures, such as extreme weather events, while transition risks arising from the changes in the economy and society from our transition to a low future. If these risks are not properly managed, the Intergovernmental Climate Change estimates that there will be $69 trillion in global financial losses over the century. So as trusted business advisors, we must help companies understand and communicate the risks and indeed the opportunities that they face, demonstrating to investors and governments the resilience and innovation at the heart of business. Disclosure can help support investment decisions with our transition to a low-carbon economy. But how do we get exposure to a decarbonised world? And what is the role of young professionals such as you? Ahead of COP26, our key ask of business is to join the UN's Race to Zero campaign. What does this mean? It means asking businesses to set net zero targets by 2050 at the latest. It means committing to credible short-term action plans that are independently verified. It means taking action to uphold the policies that promises the Paris Summit to keep our planet safe. Many businesses are meeting this challenge. More than a third of the FTSE 100 have joined the Race to Zero, and over 2,000 companies worldwide. The big four accountancy firms are also in. It's clear carbon is increasingly a risk and a cost. That's why companies need to disclose and to act. So I'm calling on you to take this message far and wide, within your firm and with clients. Industry leaders are on a pathway to resilient and green growth, a narrative as we emerge from the pandemic. As the generation that will take this forward, you can provide a unique and persuasive argument for acting today, not waiting until tomorrow. Good luck with that, and thank you for listening to me today. Efforts to climate change continue to grow. Business is crucial to this. We need everyone to join the Race to Zero. Make sure you're part of this change. Stepping forwards and calling for action is never easy. But I have faith in your drive and in your vision. And I know that you'll be hearing from some inspirational climate leaders who are shaping this debate. And I'm sure you will be adding your voices to their good luck.
1 minute.
Your business living thing. Grow based on the decisions you make. The directions.
Stuff. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for taking the time to speak with us and our audience, and really build on the efforts to mobilise the young finance and business community to take real ownership of climate change and build more resilient communities for us all. So now we're going to pass back to our speakers to sort of get their view on what we've just seen. So, big hustle round. In 1 minute or less, what did you take away from that speech? Let's make this a frank, action-orientated lightning round. Let's start with you.
Yeah, of course. Take the 3 courses, find your thinking, and then immediately answer questions to your line manager. Why aren't we accounting for climate using IFRS or an auditor? Why aren't we auditing climate-related financial numbers in our clients' books? And then strap in for the best ride of your life. And yeah, that would be my advice. So don't stop, keep on pushing. Thank you.
Love that. Yeah, great stuff. Under the 1 minute time limit as well. I like it a lot, Ravi. Angelique, over to you.
I mean, my takeaway is young professionals all have have a role to play. So make sure you see yourself, you position yourself, you play that role in really transforming the world and where it needs to get to, which is below 1.5 degrees. Otherwise, I'm in trouble, but then it's coming fast of you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Angelique. Jessica, you're up next.
I would just say, don't forget the power that you have as an individual and the personal decisions that you make. Take ownership over those decisions, put yourself forward and fight for what you believe in so that we can adapt to this ever-changing world.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's definitely doing something what you believe in and making sure you align those around you to really get that collective belief going to make a difference. We're going to come to you for a comment.
Following on from the Minister, carbon pricing. Every job you do, every company you're in, every company you audit, ask how they are pricing carbon. Most companies are pricing it at 20 to 25% of what the real cost is. You're the accountant. If you're pricing it at 10, you should be pricing it in at 40. If the whole accounting from worldwide starts saying, where is your carbon pricing? How are you accounting for it? And bringing it up to where it should be, the cost of the real damage. That's something you guys can do.
Yeah, great insight there, Kate. And now Michael, to top us off, over to you.
Well, as young chartered accountants and finance professionals, you are all pretty numerically literate. I put it that when the Minister talks about 2050, you do the maths. It's not good enough. It's too far out. Yeah. We need to be bringing that in as a goal and a target. You need to make a hell of a lot of noise and saying you've got to try harder. You heard from Jessica earlier, when governments around the world have faced catastrophe, they can act. And I think that's what we've got to do, make a lot of noise. I mean, are we going to leave this to school children to do the maths and tell us what we need to do? We need to bring that data in, and we need to bring it in by decades, not years.
For sure, for sure. Thank you so much for that, Michael. And now I believe you're going to introduce the video for us.
Okay, well, thank you, Roddy. This video is about difference makers. And I think you've probably already just heard from a chartered accountant, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, that she is making a difference and she is trying to make things happen. What some of you on this webinar perhaps don't know is that the UK government and their initiative driving COP26 forward is led by 3 individuals, of which Anne-Marie Trevelyan is just one. The others are Alok Sharma and Andrew Griffiths. Now, by coincidence, they happen to be chartered accountants. If you want proof positive that chartered accountants can make a difference, look no further than the 3 politicians who are driving forward the UK effort towards COP26. If they can do it, you can do it. I hope you enjoy the video.
Your business is a living thing, growing and evolving based on the decisions you make, decisions you take. Chartered accountants have the skills, commitment to ethics, and global expertise to help your business. We are uniquely experienced to make a difference to your world. A difference maker. Choose a chartered accountant.
Excellent. Thank you all. And that brings us nicely to the end of our first hour together. We'll obviously hear from our speakers in the Q&A momentarily. Over to you.
So I've really loved this first hour. I've definitely been to some notes. My main things that I've taken away are, I mean, we all know finance is crucial to action. It's undeniable that the power of finance can really set the pace. So it's down to us really. And we don't need to be a follower. We can bridge that gap and we can lead by example. So I don't know about you, Jolly, but taking anything else away on top of that?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page for a few of those elements. Probably that co-chair is coming through. But I think just the one thing on top of that is adding that mentality and that belief to really make a difference. I think understanding that you can every day personally, but also professionally. I think that's what's going to be key, of not separating from your personal beliefs and hobbies and passions to change something or the world. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
Oh, well, we've got plenty to get through in the next 25 minutes in our Q&A. We hope you can stick around, but if you can't, we're going to the event with a wrap up of the key takeaways. Today has been a really exceptional opportunity to change perspectives from leaders in their field, and we're so grateful to each and every one of you for joining us. If you are interested in learning more about FinBiz 2030, head over to our website at finbiz2030.com and find out how you can get involved with our work. We're always looking for enthusiastic talent to come on board. So Jolly, I'm going to leave it with you to lead the Q&A. For those of you sticking on, we'll see you on the other side of this 20-second break. Or for those of you who are leaving us now, thank you for joining us. I was only on mute twice.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks.
And now we are delighted, welcome back, of course, long time no see. We are delighted to have our three brilliant speakers joining us again answer your questions over the next 25 minutes. We've got plenty of questions to get through, so we're going to try and canter through them nicely. So welcome back, Jess, Ravi and Angelique. So let's just get straight into it. First question, this one's coming to you, Ravi. So in your opinion, what are the actions that we, as responsible accountants, should take to have a positive impact on climate change?
Yeah, of course. Great question. I guess we have all the necessary skills, and just reiterating what was already mentioned earlier, we have to continue pushing. It's evident that climate and financial reporting are very much intertwined. Climate is a financial risk. It needs to be included in within the financial reports. Accountants hold the keys to the financial reports. There's no reason to not get started on that. So, and we have the skill set to really question the commitments and the sustainability narrative which are coming out of corporates as well, and challenge those positions and assumptions, and really ascertain what sort of impact does that have on the financials. Because if we don't, when can we start this process? We have to start now. There's enough narrative out there to really support an individual's position to really accelerate this internally, and it's really collaborating internally to make sure that you can get this this address within the books which a company which a chartered accountant is responsible for.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's really time to make sure that it's not too easy just to sit back and just let stuff run past you. It's very important to make a stand, get proactive, get doing something, however small, really start to make that difference. So moving on to question 2 now. So Jessica, this one's coming your way. So question 2 is, what is the future of the accountant in tackling climate change, and how does that look by the year 2030 or sooner?
Actually, a friend of mine asked me the other day when I said I was doing this talk, she said, but what's accounting got to do with climate change? And I was like, how long do you have? So I think we're going to be of tantamount importance as we get closer to 2030. Auditors will be holding organisations to account, but all of us have the inherent value of scepticism and questioning. And as accountants, we're the best placed group in that regard to see through greenwashing and make sure organisations are doing what they actually say they'll do to meet the 2030 goals. As individuals, we're all motivated to make sure that it happens, because none of us really want to live in worst case scenario world. But also, I think accountants have that numeric ability to measure and analyse the progression against these goals and then externalities that all organisations are generating.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point to bring up on the externalities there, where there's so many actions and reactions in all of these climate change, and understanding, like with one of the ICAEWs, understanding the global impacts. is really important. So not just focusing only on local level, but also other externalities that occur because of that. And I think accountants are definitely well placed to support in that. Thank you so much. Okay, so question 3. How can solutions or actions best meet the international standards for support, since climate change action is best implemented at the local level for a higher impact? Angelique, this one's coming your way.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Interesting one. And I think the source of the problem is because we're sitting in different rooms and we're speaking different languages. And here, don't mean English versus French, but more so thinking of ourselves in our comfort zone and the silos that we typically work in. And I think the issue is we all have very different key performance indicators. So, for example, at the international level or in the finance world, key performance indicators very much relate to what is seen as a sort of impact in numbers, and typically numbers based on dollar value. And when you go to the community level, in terms of success, the impact is not necessarily based on dollar value, but rather the lives of people that you've changed, the new jobs that you've created, the livelihoods that you've supported, or now when somebody's getting more from the ecosystems, the natural services that are being provided by the environment. And I think that's where the disconnect is. And in order for us to be able to bridge that gap, I think it's very important that we acknowledge how to, first of all, educate both. The local community need to understand the key performance indicators of the finance world and the international world, and the international world and finance world needs to understand the key performance indicators or the expectations of the community and what actually is impactful. But at the same time, and it's a bit of a pitch for funds like COP26, but having national intermediaries rather than always going for these big international intermediaries really helps to make sure that the international community, the donors are always aware of what's actually happening on the ground. And we have the expertise to report both in terms of the international standards and their KPIs, as well as meeting the impact that local communities want to see on the ground. So I think there's a lot to be done there, but there's a need to bridge it. It starts with education, but it needs then to move to really implementing that bridge, if you like.
Yeah, and I think that's where the accountancy professions really can have to step in with improving its reporting on those very sensitive things, people's quality of life. If those coral reefs, how someone would see that and enjoy that is very difficult to quantify at points, but certainly vital to achieving what I think all of us on this call definitely want to achieve, and hopefully our audience. So thank you so very, very much for that, Angelique. So 3 more questions coming up. This one was one of the most popular, and it's kind of open to the floor. So please, one of you 3 jump in, or I have to pick one of you. What actions would you recommend to someone just starting out / a student in their finance journey? Any takers? Any brave takers? Jessica, let's go.
I'll jump before it gets too painful. As someone who's just finishing their finance journey, I would say number 1 is you've got those 5 ethical considerations to have with you at all times. Think of them as your little pocket guide, but also give yourself a 6th one, which is sustainability, and think about all those interlinking issues in every aspect of your work. And I know it sounds really broad and difficult, but for thinking back to myself as an auditor, being given maybe some provisions work in my first year, thinking about the application of IAS 37 and how that applies in terms of climate risk, it very much needs to be something that you carry with you all the time. Also, I would say start challenging your senior managers, your line managers. Ask what's going on, where's the climate guidance, come into the gate storming a bit and make sure you've got that sort of impression and that they know what you're about, how you're going to define within your organization, because then some really great opportunities can open up.
Yeah, I definitely love to echo that, because I think, as Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus said, if imagination costs nothing, why don't you imagine the world? And I think definitely if you join a big organization, or if you join a small organization, really people want to help you. If you're there, ambitious, you have that goal, you have that clarity that Kate was speaking about before, I think you can really make a lot happen, and people will be very, very happy to make that happen. So really keeping that drive, that passion, that ambition, and clarity of thought, first and foremost, is definitely going to help people along the way. So next open question is, what are the key challenges you think that need to be overcome for the community to excel in climate action? Ravi bravely putting his hand up there, and thanks, Den.
Yeah, so it goes back to what Angelique had mentioned. You know, it's trying to break down the silos. We're entrenched in our thinking, right? And when it comes to climate, accountants can't solve this by themselves. I know that, because I've worked in industry, and you kind of do have to, like, and I worked in a sustainability department as well, and you kind of do have to challenge your own assumptions as an accountant, and also challenge the assumptions of the individual who you're trying to challenge as well. And I guess there's already quite a lot of content which is already out there. Jess had mentioned it a moment ago. You know, the foundations of accounting, there are, you know, IAS 37, as she mentioned, using that as a back pillar with regards to the conversations with the finance individuals, referencing IFRS with regards to their work around climate accounting. It's, you know, those are the real challenges. It's breaking down silos, and also time as well, because it takes time to actually bring people on a journey. So starting the process now.
I think Angelique was vying to get in there, so go over to Angelique.
No, just to support what Ravi's saying as well, and getting people on a journey does not necessarily have to. It doesn't have to start off big action, right? It can start off with small things, just like convincing your whole office that it's better to have that we don't use plastic bottles anymore. You know, it's these small, tiny steps that trigger something in people's mind, like, oh, why am I doing this? Oh, right, there's this issue at hand that I need to be thinking about. And then from then on, you know, it moves. Okay, you manage to get everybody off plastic bottles. And then what can you push next? You'll realize that not only do you start a trend, but you also start a clan, if you like. You have other people following you, and you're practically mobilizing all the people you will need to take the big action, to challenge your managers, to challenge others, your clients, and say, you know, what about this? So I say, you know, definitely take those steps, but it doesn't have to be daunting. You can start off small, and then really take people on a perhaps slow but effective journey, so that they really embed the values that you're trying to teach.
Yeah, spot on the money, I think that. And I think from my perspective, it's when bridging from any problem to a solution, you know, communication is going to be extremely key. Taking complex information and making it into simple communication is the way you bridge any problem to solution. So it's our job as accountants to make those reporting measurements, make that communication very clear, so that it's the whole of the rest of the business and wider society what the impacts are and what we need to do to get there, because I think sometimes that can be confusing. The final question is that we've been seeing in the Q&A panel is, what are some of the tangible actions that you would recommend for us as chartered accountants? We're hearing a lot of, oh, we're so important, and you know, we've got to do stuff to make an action. But what is someone in finance and business or a chartered accountant that can do tomorrow morning or right away tonight to actually act on climate? So I'd love to hear one or two quick action points or thoughts from each of you. Just quick fire round. Ravi, straight in. I love it.
Yeah, so reference the International Financial Reporting Standards work on this. They've produced content on climate-related financial risks and how it's conducive to financial reporting. Push that in front of your CFO. Say, and then just go, look, what are we doing about this? There's guidance out there. Let's act upon it if it isn't already being addressed. That will be my first starting point.
Love it. Never reinvent the wheel, everyone. That's the key. I've definitely learned that a few times. Angelique.
So you've got the accountant, and Jess is going to come in on as the auditor. So I'm going to take a different perspective to this. Don't forget your citizens, your consumers, your voters, and as such, you make sure you're using that power as well to make the right choices to support sustainability. Think about what you're consuming from. Think about what you're buying. What's the source? How does it get to you? Think about the things that have been designed over time. Why does it have that thing that lasts 30 seconds and then we just chuck it away? What's happening to that? Ask those questions as a citizen, a consumer, and a voter. So I'll now leave it to the more finance or accounting and auditing side of things. But that's from a small island state. That's what I would like.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So I definitely think it's important to get those diversity of thoughts and views, as Emma was saying earlier in the show. So definitely important to get the whole range of what people should be thinking about. So thank you very much, Angelique. Jessica, last question, last answer. Here it is, make it a big one.
Well, it's going to be good. I have the conversation. If you're an auditor, have the conversation with your client. If you're in industry, have the conversation with your auditor. I know we're all in this webinar together, but actually not everyone else is. Not everyone is as interested in on these views as all the attendees are. So you need to start having these conversations and telling people, this is what we want to be thinking about. This is where the world is moving. These standards might come into place soon. So let's just get ahead. Let's do it. Let's get on it. Because as we know with many organizations, especially if you're auditing organizations, things can happen quite slowly and they happen in cycles. So we've got to get on it, and we've got to get on it now.
Yeah, love that. And I think one thing on top of it is just ensure tone is always correct in these messaging. So I think at the moment, there's sometimes, rightly so, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of upset at what's happening in the world right now, but make sure you're using that collaborative tone of we can do something better and we can do it in a positive spin. So I think, rather than shouting, you need that anger to actually let's have the positivity on top of it to really make a difference. So unfortunately, that's the end of the Q&A and the end of our show this evening. I was having a lot of fun there. Didn't want it to end, but alas, all good. So thank you each and every one of you for joining and asking your questions. It was very much appreciated. And please give a huge round of virtual applause to our exceptional individual leaders who would take the time to join us today. So it's really appreciated because I know they have very busy schedules. Little round of applause for Jessica, Angelique and Ravi, very much appreciated. Please continue to engage with us on social media and use the hashtag FinBiz2030 and keep tagging us in your start of this conversation and keep it going. Over to you for some final comments.
A million thanks from us and the teams at One Young World and Chartered Accountants Worldwide. The biggest thanks goes to our hosts, ICAEW, for all their time spent on making this event happen, and to our partners at Big Top Multimedia and A1 for making it run smoothly as ever. You can keep in touch by signing up to our newsletter and learn more at our website, finbiz2030.com. Please reach out to either Jolly or myself at any point. We would love to hear from you. So thank you once again, everyone, and take care.
Woo! Let's go!